Good morning from Athens, Greece. It is 9:30 here on this Saturday morning. Let's get to some news. Let's start things off with this missile strike at this POW camp south of Donetsk, the facility in Elenovka, which was housing POWs, Azov guys, captured in Mariupol. And the missile hit Friday early in the morning, middle of the night, early in the morning. And the casualties as of this moment, the confirmed casualties as of this moment are 53 dead and 75 injured, including 13 people who actually worked at the POW camp facility. Now, we've got two narratives as to what happened. And the first narrative, of course, comes from the Ukraine side, and the other narrative comes from the Russia DPR Donetsk side. So the Ukraine side of things, they are saying, Ukrainian authorities are saying that that the Russians, they decided to hit at this POW camp in order to hide, to cover up torture that was taking place at this POW camp. I've also heard various analysts from the Ukrainian side of things and Ukrainian authorities say that the Russians hit at this camp in order to annihilate these Azov fighters, just to get rid of them once and for all. So I've also heard accounts like that as well. But the main narrative coming out of Ukraine at this moment is that this camp was hit by Russians, by the Russian military, in order to cover up torture that was taking place at this camp. Now, I've also heard accounts coming from the Ukraine side of things that it wasn't the Russian military, but it was the Wagner group that decided to strike at this camp as well, and they hit this camp without the approval from the Russian military. So the Ukraine account of things is a little bit all over the place. The Russian Donetsk side of things, they are saying that Ukraine authorities knew exactly where this camp was, that they hit this camp using American HIMARS missile systems. They actually claim that they've got fragments of the missiles used, which proves this was done with American-supplied HIMARS. So I'd be very interested to see the photos, the photographic evidence of these fragments. And the Russian Donetsk authorities, they are saying that Ukraine hit this POW camp in order to hit at prisoners of war who were being interrogated by the Russian authorities, and in order to also send a message to Ukraine military: don't you dare think of surrendering, because this fate awaits you if you surrender. We're going to find you and we're going to hit you. And so that's the reason from the Russian side of things as to why the Ukraine military hit this POW camp. So the Russians are saying Ukraine wanted to get to these POWs in order to stop their interrogation. In other words, they were spilling the beans about a lot of things, and also in order to send a message to other military personnel: don't you dare think of surrendering. So those are the two narratives. In a nutshell, those are the two narratives. Now, I don't know what happened. I think that if fragments are shown proving that this was done using HIMARS, then I think it's case closed. But I haven't seen any of these fragments yet, so I can't say that this was done by the Ukrainians. But there is one piece of evidence. I'm not even going to say evidence. There is one thing which is leading me to believe that this was indeed done by the Zelensky regime and by the Ukraine military. And what is that thing that is leading me to this conclusion? Well, it's the fact that the Pentagon and the US military have come out with a statement saying they cannot confirm what happened at this POW camp. They can't confirm that the Russians did it, which is a very, very interesting statement coming from the Pentagon, because usually when stuff like this happens, when a missile hits some sort of civilian structure, or in this case a POW camp, or a railway or a railroad facility, or some sort of bus station or something like this, whether you're talking about Ukraine, whether you're talking about Syria, Libya, Iraq, whatever it is. Usually when something like this happens, the Pentagon jumps on it right away. And the US State Department jumps on it right away, and they say, Russia did it, Assad did it, Saddam did it, Gaddafi did it. Right away, without any evidence. They don't need anything. They cite social media sources. They cite in this case, they would cite the Ukraine Ministry of Defense, and they would say, the Russians hit this POW camp. We know it, they did it. This is considered to be a civilian structure, which it is. This would be considered a war crime, I would imagine. And the US Pentagon and the State Department would say, Russia's to blame. And then the EU would come out with statements and say, Russia's to blame. And then the UN would come out with statements and say, it looks like Russia's to blame. In this case, the Pentagon is saying, we just don't have enough information to speak intelligently about these very early reports. That is coming from John Kirby, spokesman for the U.S. National Security Council. This is what he told reporters. According to an unnamed senior Pentagon official, Americans, and I quote, don't have any definitive information on what happened and whether the facility was struck by Ukraine or Russia. The UN has also come out with a statement pretty much echoing what the US is saying. They condemn the attack, but they just don't know what happened. They lack first-hand reports to comment further. That is what the UN is saying. The fact that the US refuses to condemn Russia for this, to me, in my opinion, signals that that Ukraine did this. That's just how I read it. I could be completely wrong, and evidence may come up today, tomorrow, in a week's time, which shows that the Russians did indeed hit this facility in order to annihilate these Azov POWs. This was a cynical act, a war crime, and the Russians just did it. Putin woke up one morning and he said, you know what, take out this POW camp in Elenovka. Or maybe the Wagner group did indeed do this as well, outside of the chain of command from the Russian Ministry of Defense. So I could be completely wrong, but my instinct, my experience covering these types of stories tells me that when the Pentagon doesn't come out right away to condemn the other side, then it means that the Pentagon knows without a shadow of a doubt that this can't be covered up, that the other side does indeed have evidence, in this case, fragments from HIMARS missiles, and they're saying, you know what, we really don't know what happened, and we just don't have enough information to, quote, speak intelligently about these very early reports. Case closed, let's move on. That is what is leading me to believe that the Ukraine military actually hit this POW camp. Not to mention that the reasons for the Russians to hit this camp, the Russians to hit Donetsk territory just doesn't quite add up, and the Russians to hit a POW facility that they operate, that they're in charge of, at a time when they're getting valuable intelligence and information from these POWs, just doesn't make much sense at all. While the reasons the Russians give for the Ukrainian side to hit this POW camp kind of makes sense to me. But the dead giveaway for me is the Pentagon not being able to blame this on Russia, or the fact that the Pentagon is afraid to come out with a statement right away and blame this on Russia, because they know that the Russians probably have the goods. They've got the evidence. So that is what is going on with this this missile strike at this POW camp in Donetsk. Now let's do an update with the story between Blinken and Lavrov, the phone call between Secretary of State Blinken and Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov with regards to this prisoner swap. And I did a video yesterday where I said that I reported that Blinken, the State Department, has indeed asked for a phone call to take place between the two foreign ministers, between the two diplomats, and that Lavrov, via Maria Zakharova, the foreign ministry spokeswoman, said that I'm busy and I'll get back to you when time permits, because right now the foreign minister Lavrov, well, he's in bilateral meetings with other diplomats. He's engaged in diplomacy and meetings with regards to the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and all of these things, and I'll get back to Blinken when I have time. And that was a brilliant response from Lavrov. But the phone call did take place, and it took place rather quickly. Now, I said in a video I did 2 days ago that Lavrov will indeed speak with Blinken, because Lavrov is not about closing doors. Unlike the US Secretary of State, who closes doors, Lavrov keeps doors open. That's good diplomacy. Keep your doors open. Engage in dialogue, even if that dialogue is with the enemy, i.e. even if that dialogue is with Blinken. Keep that door open and listen to what your enemy has to tell you. So I knew that eventually Lavrov would take the call with Blinken. I just didn't expect it to be this quickly. I thought Lavrov would delay perhaps till Sunday, till Monday, maybe give it a couple of days and let Blinken kind of stew in his own juices, as they say. Let Blinken kind of sit around and wait for Lavrov to pick up the phone. But the phone call took place very, very quickly. And we don't really have much information as to what was said, to be quite honest. Moscow has confirmed that they did indeed engage in a phone call with the U.S. State Department. The Russians say that they discussed. It was a professional dialogue, and it was a quiet form of diplomacy without any speculation. They discussed the conflict in Ukraine. Lavrov discussed the continual escalation from the U.S. side of sending weapons and money to Ukraine. They discussed that as well. And they discussed the proposal floated out by the American side with regards to this WNBA player, Griner, and Whelan, this alleged spy, and this prisoner swap in exchange for this this Lord of War, Dogs of War, weapons seller, weapons sales guy, Bout, who, from what I understand, was actually selling weapons. There are reports that he was actually selling weapons on behalf of the U.S. military as well. So it's not so clear cut as to who this Bout guy is. It's not so clear cut that he's a Russian weapons dealer. From what I understand, he was kind of playing all sides, which to me would make a lot more sense, because he's all about the money. So I'm sure he was playing off the Americans. I'm sure he was playing off the Russians. I'm sure he was playing off all kinds of other countries as well with regards to his military deals. But anyway, that was the deal. The Americans, at least that's the deal that we know of. The Americans are offering 2 people. The Russians get 1. Griner, Whelan for Bout. So that is what we know from the reports coming out of the foreign ministry as to what was discussed. The U.S. State Department said that they had a frank and direct conversation with the Russian minister and, quote, pressed the Kremlin to accept the substantial proposal that we put forth on the release of Paul Whelan and Brittany Griner. Now, Moscow also says that they have not confirmed receiving any specific proposals on the matter with regards to the prisoner swap. So that is what we know. That is what we know with regards to this prisoner swap. Telephone conversation between Lavrov and Blinken. This was the first conversation that the two senior diplomats have had since the beginning of the special military operation, the conflict in Ukraine. So it's significant that it's a significant development that Lavrov and Blinken did finally speak. But looking at the readouts, there's still a lot that is being kept under wraps. And when you hear the U.S. State Department say that they had a frank discussion, a frank and constructive dialogue, a frank and direct conversation to be exact, then you know that it was probably a pretty tense, exchange between the two foreign ministers. So that is the update with regards to this prisoner swap phone call. My opinion on this is that I am a bit surprised that Lavrov took the call so quickly. I thought he would delay it a little bit more. I knew he would eventually take the call, because you're going to have to take the call. As a professional diplomat that Lavrov is, you're going to have to speak with Blinken sooner or later. But I thought he would let it kind of sit there and simmer for a day or two. Either way, that is the prisoner swap phone call story. Let's wait and see if there's any more information that is revealed, or if the swap actually takes place. You know, it could happen. It could happen, any day now as well. We don't know. It is interesting that this is taking place without Griner's trial concluding. I would imagine that the Russian side, at the very least, would tell the American side, look, send us your proposal, but we have to let the legal process come to a conclusion with regards to Griner, because the case is still ongoing. And then we can talk about a possible exchange. I would imagine that something like that would be communicated to the American side. So let's move on and talk about the New York Times story that they ran a couple of days ago, which claimed that Russia, according to sources in the Biden White House, the Russian military has suffered big casualties in this conflict in Ukraine. According to a classified briefing, which made its way to the New York Times, Russia has suffered 70,000 plus killed or wounded in this special military operation conflict in Ukraine. Not only is the New York Times reporting via these sources in the Biden White House that Russia has suffered a casualty count of 75,000 plus, but they also claim that over 80% of Russian forces, land forces, are bogged down and they're tired. That is a quote from the New York Times reporting. 80% of Russian land forces are bogged down and they're tired. Now, if this was indeed the case, then I would imagine that this war would have been over a while ago, and that Russia would indeed have sat at the negotiation table with Zelensky and they would have negotiated a peace instead of continuing to push forward and gain territory. That's the first point I want to make. Second point I want to make is that other accounts that we've had with regards to Russian casualties from the collective mainstream media, specifically the BBC, are nowhere even close to the 75,000 number. The BBC was reporting something along the lines of 15,000, if I'm not mistaken, 10 or 15,000. And then I've heard other accounts which have been lower than that. The last time the Russian Ministry of Defense actually reported casualties was back in March. And at that time, they reported, I believe they reported 1,500 killed and 3,500 injured. I could be wrong about that number, But it was somewhere around there, and that was back in March 24th, towards the end of March. That is the last time Russia has disclosed the casualty figures. No one knows exactly how many Russian soldiers or even Ukraine soldiers have been killed or wounded. We don't have an exact number, though the Zelensky regime has said at times that 100 Ukrainian soldiers are getting killed a day. We've heard 300 Ukrainian soldiers are getting killed a day. I've heard accounts of 700 a day. And then you had Zelensky just a week ago say, no. The number is actually more along the lines of 30 casualties a day. So even the Zelensky regime is all over the place with regards to casualty figures. But this New York Times number is ridiculous, and it's a fabrication, I believe, in my opinion. And what leads me to believe that, to me, the tell in all of this, the giveaway, is this 80% of Russian forces are bogged down and they're tired. 80% of Russian land forces are bogged down and tired, according to this New York Times article and a source at the White House. If that is the case, then how do you explain Russia unveils large-scale military exercises in the east, signaling force strength unaffected by Ukraine, as is being reported not only by Russian media, as has been scheduled now by the Russian Ministry of Defense, but as is also being reported by Reuters as well, which is that Russia is going ahead with their regularly scheduled military drill in the east of Russia, the Vostok drills, and they're going to go ahead with these drills as if nothing is going on in Ukraine. If 80% of Russian land forces are bogged down in Ukraine, then how is Russia possibly going to be moving forward with the Vostok East Russian military drills, which from what I understand are going to be taking place from August 30th to September 5th and will show the full military might and power of Russia. These aren't going to be scaled down drills. These aren't going to be drills that are only going to take place for one day because of the war. And these drills have not been canceled. Nothing of the sort is taking place. These are pre-planned drills that the Russian military conducts in various regions. They do the Vostok, they do the Zapad, they do the central military drills. Everything is going ahead as planned, and it is going to showcase that the Russian military is indeed ready for anything that comes its way. And the Russians are showcasing that in Ukraine, this is not a war for the Russians. This is still a special military operation. Keep in mind, the Russians still have not declared war in Ukraine. And because this is a special military operation for the Russians, I've read accounts which say anywhere between 10 and 20% of Russian forces are engaged in Ukraine. And I believe the most accurate number is somewhere along the 10 to 15% range. That is the number that I've read as to how many forces are actually engaged in this special military operation, which would mean that Russia absolutely has... That guy's got his music bumping. That is Greek rap music, everybody. That is Greek rap music right there. But yeah, this would show that the Russians obviously don't have 80% of their land forces bogged down in Ukraine, and that the Russians actually have the overwhelming majority of their forces, their military forces, ready and waiting for whatever comes their way, not engaged in Ukraine. In other words, the majority of Russian forces are not engaged in Ukraine. So, riddle me that one as to this New York Times article, which I believe is BS. I actually believe that they're running articles like that to continue to paint the picture that Russia is suffering significant losses, to continue to paint the picture that Ukraine, if we just send them more money and more weapons, they're going to finally get that counteroffensive and that victory that that the Biden White House has been going on about for the past 4 months. And more importantly, I think the New York Times is running stories like this in order to beef up the sales of U.S. weapons, specifically HIMARS and stuff like that. Because what the New York Times wants to do for its friends in the military-industrial complex, they want to show that these HIMAR wonder weapons are indeed delivering a substantial and significant blow to the Russians. And the HIMAR weapon system is so good that other countries should purchase HIMARS, like, for example, Poland, which has just acquired 500 US-made HIMARS. You see? Or the Baltic states, which are also now in negotiations to purchase the wonder weapon HIMAR missile system. That is why the New York Times runs stories like this. These stories are sales pitches. This is not reporting. These are sales pitches, marketing presentations to tell the Polish military, to tell the Latvian, the Lithuanian, Estonian military, to tell NATO countries. You see, since we've delivered these HIMARS, Russia has now suffered 75,000 plus casualties, and 80% of the mighty Russian military is now bogged down in Ukraine because of these HIMAR wonder weapons, or because of our Switchblade drones or Ghost drones, or whatever the wonder weapon was. The Javelin, I think there's nothing they can do to pump up the sales of Javelins at this point. The Javelins have been completely discredited, but you know, they've got the HIMARS in place now, and they want to bump up sales. So this New York Times article is a sales pitch. Nothing more, nothing less. Now, let's do 2 Clown World stories. The first Clown World story is coming from Latvia. And this is an interesting story because it's kind of 2 news stories which don't make much sense. The first story says that Latvia is now requiring anybody traveling from Belarus or Russia and transiting through Latvia that they have to sign a document saying that they do not agree with the Russian special military operation in Ukraine. They do not agree with the war in Ukraine. And if they do not sign up to this document, if they don't sign this document as they pass through Latvia, then the Latvian authorities are going to cancel the traveler's Schengen visa. That is incredible. Non-citizens entering Latvia from Russia or Belarus must sign statements condemning the military operation in Ukraine as aggression and will have their Schengen visas canceled if they refuse. The Baltic country's security service neither denied nor directly confirmed this on Friday to the Latvian public broadcaster following reports that dozens of foreigners have been denied entry. Foreigners who enter Latvia from aggressor countries, Russia or Belarus, face increased scrutiny at border checkpoints, the state security service, known as its Latvian abbreviation VDD, told LSM Public Radio. So it hasn't been 100% confirmed, but allegedly Russian and Belarusians who are transiting through Latvia are having to sign these statements saying that they don't agree with the Russian special military operation in Ukraine, and that it is, quote unquote, an act of aggression. Now, at the same time, if this is true, and that Latvia is making Russians and Belarusians sign this document, or they risk having their Schengen canceled, if this is indeed true, I don't even know, can Latvia cancel a Schengen visa? Maybe. But if this is true, then how do you explain the fact that the very same country, Latvia, has confirmed that it is buying Russian natural gas? They are buying Russian natural gas. Now, they're not buying this gas from Gazprom. And this is according to the head of the Latvian gas company, Latvijas Gāze, which has told the news outlet Delphi that Latvijas Gāze is buying gas now, but we don't buy gas from Gazprom because we can't pay Gazprom. We have another supplier. Algars Galvitis, chairman of the gas company, was cited as saying. Now, the official did not disclose the name of the intermediary that is supplying the company with Russian natural gas. I would suspect they're probably getting the gas from Poland, or maybe other neighboring Baltic countries, or maybe a combination of Poland, other neighboring countries. Perhaps you may be looking at Finland, Sweden, Norway, who knows? But Gazprom gas, Russian gas, is definitely in the mix of the gas that Latvia is purchasing. They're just buying it via a middleman. And so on the one hand, Latvia is making Russians and Belarusians sign a document saying that they disown their own country, while on the other hand, they're buying Russian gas. Yeah, it's through a middleman, but it is still Russian gas that is heating the homes of Latvian citizens, and that is heating the government public buildings in Latvia. So that is an interesting bit of hypocrisy there from Latvia. And the next clown world story has to do with the football match between Turkish side Fenerbahce and Ukraine side Dynamo Kiev. Now, there's been a lot of reporting about this football match, which I believe Dynamo Kiev actually won 2-1. This was a Champions League match, if I'm not mistaken. I do believe this was either a UEFA League or Champions League. It was a Champions League qualifier match. And I do believe Dynamo won that 2-1, Dynamo Kiev. But during the match, there's a lot of videos going around of the Turkish side chanting Vladimir Putin's name, and now UEFA has opened up an investigation on Fenerbahce fans, on the Turkish fans, because they were chanting Vladimir Putin as they were taunting the Dynamo Kiev players. And they actually started chanting after Dynamo, from what I gather, scored a goal. I think they scored the opening goal, and that's when the chant started. Now, I'm not going to get into whether this is right or wrong, to be quite honest. I've heard people say that this is just trolling from the Turkish fans, and I've heard other accounts saying this is disgusting. I can't believe that the Turkish fans did this. They're so insensitive. Okay, I've heard the entire spectrum as to people's opinions with the actual chant. What I will say is this. The fact that UEFA is opening up an investigation is also pretty hypocritical, because it is UEFA that has politicized football matches. This is the fault of UEFA. Whether you agree with what Turkey was chanting or not, the fact that they are chanting political types of statements, to me, is the fault of UEFA. One sec here as I'm trying to close up this backpack and walk a bit. The fact that you're getting political chants is because UEFA has politicized sports in much the same way that the NBA has politicized sports and the NFL has politicized sports. They make political statements. They put political statements on the pitch. They put political statements on jersey. They make the players take a knee. In this instance, they allowed the Ukraine football players to actually enter the stadium with flags, Ukrainian flags wrapped around them. Now, this is a football club. This is not the national team of Ukraine playing. This is the football club Dynamo Kiev, which will definitely have Ukrainian nationals playing for this football club, but it will also have footballers from other nationalities and other countries, as all football clubs have. So the fact that they came out draped in Ukrainian flags is also a political statement. And when the Turkish fans see the Ukraine football players, see the Dynamo Kiev football players wearing Ukraine flags, you want to know what the fans in Turkey say? They say, that's how we're going to get to them. We'll get political. That's how we're going to troll them. That's how we're going to get under their skin. And that's what they did. And then they see the political statement is allowed by UEFA. UEFA allows them to wear these flags and come out onto the pitch, then UEFA allows them to take a knee and make political statements and make statements like "we stand with Ukraine," on the billboards of the football pitch. And the Turkish fans say that's their sensitive spot. That's what we're going to chant then, because that's what's going to have the most effect. Why are they chanting? They're chanting in order to disrupt the players. They're hoping the chants are going to make a difference in the outcome of the match. So look, Dynamo Kiev won. They won. That should be the end of this. Why UEFA is opening up an investigation, I want to say I don't understand, but I do understand why UEFA is opening up an investigation, because UEFA is, at the end of the day, a sports organization that is political. They want to also pass along a political message. And they're at fault for what the Fenerbahce Turkish fans chanted, because they're the ones that have made football political. Now, I am 100% convinced that if the Turkish fans chanted, "Zelensky is king, Zelensky is king, oh, Zelensky is king, Zelensky is king," I am positive that UEFA would not open up an investigation. I'm 100% positive if that was the chant. But because the Turkish fans chanted something that went against the political message of UEFA and the powers above UEFA, well, UEFA now has to open up an investigation. If you chant the political message that these sports organizations agree with, they're not going to have a problem with it. But if you chant something political that they don't agree with, well then, they have to open up investigations, and heads are going to roll, and people are going to get fined. Football clubs are going to get fined. So that's my opinion with regards to this event. Honestly, Dynamo Kiev won at the end of the day, and I do believe they won. If they didn't win, then, I messed up. But I do believe that they won this Champions League match 2-1, if I'm not mistaken. And at the end of the day, that's what matters in a football match. And okay, the Turkish fans chanted. The Ukraine fans, I'm sure, also chanted some nasty stuff to the Turkish fans as well. That's football. Football can get pretty nasty sometimes, but as long as it's just chants and it doesn't turn into actual physical violence, everyone can go home and wait until the next match. So that is my take there. Check out Alexander's channel. Check out the Duran's channel. Go to Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, and Telegram. Look for us on Telegram, theduran.locals.com. Did I already say that? If I didn't, theduran.locals.com and the Duran shop, 10% off. Use the code. Good day. Take care.